This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Connected Data, the makers of Transporter and the brand new Transporter Sync. Find out more and get 10% off the new Transporter Sync with the offer code MV10 at filetransporter.com/MV. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, he's done it again. Joe Kissell has written another Take Control book. Joe, it's great to have you back. Thanks for being here.
It's nice to be here as always. You know, as we were saying just before the show, I'm not really sleeping, so I might as well at least do something useful with time. So.
You actually look a little more rested than the last time we talked.
My sister made me this groovy tie-dyed T-shirt for Christmas, and so it's this like bright thing that's going to give you the illusion that I'm more alert than I really am. So
I see. So that's the secret. Is just we all need a tie-dyed T-shirt.
Dress for the I don't know.
Yeah. You got nothing. Well, this time Joe has taken on the topic of the title of the book is Take Control of Automating Your Mac. So he's taken on the topic of automation. And Joe, I got to tell you, it's a big topic, and I think it's a topic that a lot of people would benefit from, but a lot of people are scared of.
Yes. Well, you know, when Adam and Tanya and I first started talking about this idea of a title about automating your Mac, my reaction was, that's a great idea, but it's just so immense. How can we ever say everything that needs to be said about automating? It's endless. I mean, if you take even just one tiny aspect of automating, like AppleScript, there are multiple books that are like, 600, 900 pages long, and then, you have a dozen other automation techniques as well. I mean, it could literally just go on forever. And so we talked it over, and we decided on an approach that we're not going to try to be comprehensive. We're going to try to do exactly what you said is take away the fear. We're trying to take automation from this, that's a big, scary, complicated thing that only computer geeks would be interested in. We're trying to take away that attitude and replace it with, oh no, all we're talking about is shortcuts. Wouldn't you like to save time? Wouldn't you like to do things more easily? Of course you would. Here are some ways you can do that. And so I feel that if the only thing I accomplish with this book is helping ordinary, non-propeller beanie-wearing people to get over this little hump of being afraid of automation as this really technical thing, because really the way I describe it, it isn't, and just come to believe that, oh yes, I can do this, and look how much time and effort it's going to save me, and how much it's going to improve my life in other ways. In whatever small ways I can do that, I will feel like I've been a success.
Okay, so like you say, the first thing we have to do is get people, I think, to recognize this is something they can benefit from. And so that means that they've got to do a little self-audit of finding things that they do day in, day out, several times a day, identify those things, because we all do them. You don't think about it, but we all do them, and then see if there is a way to make them automatic or at least faster.
So I recommend using this advanced technology that I refer to as paper. And you can use an implement called a pen to record ideas on the paper. It's so cool. Everyone should get this, because it's the next big thing. I'm certain of it. But what I'm suggesting is that as you do your normal daily stuff, just notice how much time you are spending doing certain tasks that I list. So you might notice that there's a certain word or phrase that you type over and over again, and maybe it's a lot of characters. Maybe you sometimes make mistakes as you're typing it, and you're like, wow, I really wish I didn't have to do so much typing. Or maybe there's some procedure that you do that involves a lot of clicking around, and you're like, well, that was 20 clicks, and I really wish I didn't have to click so many times to do that thing. Or maybe you have to open a series of windows or documents and do something in each one, whatever it may be. And just make a list of those things that you feel like they're tedious, they're boring, they require more time or energy than you would like to spend. and just keep the running list of these things, and then using my book as a reference, find tools that can help you reduce the number of keystrokes or reduce the number of clicks or reduce the number of repetitive operations. And you may find that even something that seems like, well, okay, so if I'm typing the word Pittsburgh, and it's however many letters it is, and maybe I want to type PGH instead of the whole word Pittsburgh, and so I'm saving a few characters, like that's not that big of a deal. And you're right, you're saving a second or whatever. But if you type the word Pittsburgh 20 times a day, over the course of a year, those seconds are really going to add up. So it's not a matter of finding things that, I mean, you may find some tasks that are massively time-saving where you have, like, you click a button and then something happens that would ordinarily have taken you a half hour. So that's possible, but I'm more looking at things where small amounts of saved effort add up. So I talk about things like text expansion, the kind that's built into OS 10, as well as text expander and atext and typeinator and type it for me and these sorts of utilities. And some of them actually have statistics in them. So you use this, you set up abbreviations, then you type PGH and you get Pittsburgh, and you set all these up and you use them over the course of weeks or a year, and then you can actually go in and look at your statistics. How much typing time did you save? And if you look after a day, you're going to say, well, I saved 12 seconds, big deal. But over a year, and as you add more and more abbreviations, you may find you've saved hours of time. So I'm looking for things like that, things that are any kind of a shortcut where you can shave off a minute here, 5 minutes there, a few seconds there, and if you do enough of them over a long enough period of time, they really add up.
Text expander is my favorite to get started, and I'm curious to see if you have a favorite, because if you watch somebody to create a text expander snippet once, you get it. Now, their text expanders are a lot more powerful than that, but it's I think one of the first places, that the easiest place to get started with something that you recognize. And your Pittsburgh example is perfect, or maybe it's a word that you constantly misspell.
Right.
It might be nice to just have it automatically correct itself all the time.
Right. Well, parenthetically, I should say that saving time and effort is an important goal of automation. But another, perhaps equally important goal, is accuracy. So if there is something where you're frequently making a mistake, or you're forgetting a piece of information, or you're transposing something or whatever, and you can let the computer do it for you, the computer's going to do it exactly the same way every time, so your accuracy is going to increase. So for anyone who doesn't know, Text Expander is one of a class of apps you can get, where basically you type something short, and as soon as you're finished typing, it expands it into something longer or different. So and here's the thing. It doesn't have to be longer, it can just be more convenient. So let's talk about emoji, right? So the little characters that are part of actual fonts, where you can get like a thumbs up symbol or a smiley face or whatever, and they're actually like little 3D looking pictures. Well, who can remember what the, like normally to insert an emoji, you'd have to like go into the special characters palette and like do a search and then double click and insert the emoji. It's really complicated. But you could say, no, when I type thumbs up, all as one word, that is going to expand into one character, which is the one that looks like this. So it's not necessarily a matter of getting more characters out, although of course you can do that. It's a matter of saving you mental energy and saving you the work of having to open this and go search for that and go all this complicated thing. So OS 10 has a built-in capability to expand text, and that's a fine place to get started. I have a really big chapter about a lot of the things that are built into OS 10 you don't have to pay any money for. They're maybe not the best examples of ways of doing things, but they're free and they're easy to use. And then not only this one standalone chapter, but sort of, you can use Spotlight as a launcher. If you don't want to use something like LaunchBar, you can use, text expansion that's built in instead of Text Expander or whatever. But in many cases, spending a few bucks on some third-party app will get you a friendlier interface or more features or more power, whatever the case may be. So to facilitate this, we've worked with 8 different developers that have products that I mentioned in the book to supply discounts. So when you buy this book, you'll actually get coupons for over $60 off these various products. So if you read what I say about Text Expander and you say, well, I really like that, then you can save $10.49 on it. And if you prefer Typinator or you prefer Type It For Me, we'll give you discounts on those too. So we're trying to do anything we can to encourage experimentation with automation techniques. And as you say, once you try a really simple thing like text expansion, the light bulb might go on. You might say, oh, well, then maybe I could do this too.
Okay, so we're talking about text expansion right now, and that's one class. You also mentioned another one of my favorite utilities, and that's LaunchBar. And that gets into a whole different kind of automation that, again, is very easily accessible and very useful to just about everybody once they learn it.
Yeah, I've been using LaunchBar since, I have to look this up, 2002. I've been using LaunchBar forever, and there are other apps that do similar things. Alfred, Butler, Quicksilver, and even to a certain extent Spotlight can do similar things. But I like LaunchBar the best, and I go into detail in the book about why and all the different kinds of things this can do. There was just an update to version 6 like a week or 2 ago, and oh, it's nice. It's really, really nice. But it's the same kind of thing. Instead of a tool that gives you less typing, what LaunchBar does is it makes it easier for you to do various operations on your Mac that would require a lot of like clicking around and opening windows and searching for stuff. So the name suggests launching, so of course you can launch apps. Like I press my LaunchBar shortcut, type the letter M, and that launches Mail. Or I type the letter S, and that opens Safari. So that's great. I don't have to go digging through my applications folder for apps, but I can also open specific documents. I can also start playing tracks in iTunes. I can look up things in 1Password. I can do calculations. There's tons and tons of things that aren't necessarily opening an app or opening a document, but it's basically a little keyboard shortcut to bring up this window, and then you just type something, and it's, oh, I know what you want to do with that. And it has saved me an immense amount of aggravation and effort, because now I no longer have to know or care where things are. I forget where I put that document. I forget which subfolder that app is in. Or I want to drag this document onto that app, which is not the app that opened it, and they're in completely different windows. It doesn't matter. I don't even have to think about where those things are anymore. I just press a shortcut, and it happens. So LaunchBar is, LaunchBar is one of those things. It's like just about the first thing I would install on any new Mac. It's very hard for me to use a Mac without it, and you don't have to you don't have to prefer LaunchBar. You don't have to agree with me, although you'd be wrong. But sorry.
Yeah.
No, I've used Alfred and Butler and Quicksilver and Spotlight, and all of those similar kinds of apps have certain things to recommend them. So if that's what you prefer, great. Go for it. Just use something. And I talk about the pros and cons of the various apps in my book. And that's another whole category of things where you can just save yourself so much effort. So here's a true story. I was at Starbucks last week, and the woman sitting next to me was having trouble with her Wi-Fi connection, and we were trying to debug it together. She had a MacBook Pro. I have a MacBook Pro, and so I said, well, I see you're using Firefox here. Maybe you should try a different browser. Do you have Google Chrome? And she, so she looked for Google Chrome, didn't have it, and then we decided she would try Safari. So her process for doing this was to go into a Finder window, go up into the search field. She's not using Spotlight or anything. She's just using the search field in a Finder window, and she would type like Safari, and then wait for Safari to show up in there, and then she would drag Safari to the dock, and then she would click Safari to open it. Actually, I'm oversimplifying. What she actually did was a little more involved, and it's too painful for me to recall. But it's like I can think of 12 easier ways to do that, but no one ever told her, here's the way you launch apps. I mean, she could have done it without any extra software, just using Spotlight. She could have done it by just going straight to her applications folder and type the letter S to, select that, the first thing that starts with the letter S. I mean, there are lots of different ways she could have done it, but she didn't know. Nobody ever told her. So she's like, well, I don't know where to find this thing. I do see a search field. I'll use that. And it was really painful for me to watch, but it was also educational. And a lot of people who haven't been doing this professionally for years and years and years just don't know. Apple does not do a good job of explaining to you how you go about doing ordinary stuff with your new Mac. You're just supposed to know. And I want to do whatever I can to erase that aggravation and pain for ordinary people who aren't computer geeks.
Transporter from Connected Data is sponsoring this edition of MacVoices. Your data in your own private cloud, safe, secure, and cost-effective. So I ask you, are you using cloud storage from the likes of Dropbox, SugarSync, or Box? Isn't it convenient to have information available to all your devices everywhere, automatically syncing back and forth so nothing is ever out of date? Except, of course, when you reach your storage limit for whatever level of service you're paying for, and paying for, and paying for, since all those services require you to pony up varying amounts of cache for storage. When you look at the cost of hard drives these days on a per gigabyte basis, and then compare that to what you're paying for cloud storage, you wonder where all that money is going. What you know is that it's leaving your pocket, that's for sure. That's why I'm loving my transporters. Yes, I said transporters because I have more than one, but that's a story for another day. What you need to know now is the transporter is much more affordable than the others. No, I mean much more affordable. Compare a 1 terabyte transporter at $249 to half that much Dropbox storage, 500 gigs, at an annual cost of $499, and you start to understand. And that was an annual cost, so you're going to pay it again next year, and the next, and the next. Wouldn't you rather do something more fun with that money? Buy a new iPad? Buy some Apple stock after the split? Or make that trip to Macworld next year that you've been promising yourself? You could fund any of those with the savings you're going to see when you pick up a transporter for your cloud storage needs. And that doesn't touch some of the other benefits of Transporter, like automatic uploading of your photos and videos from your iPhone via the brand new version of the File Transporter app, or the security of Transporter's private encrypted downloads, or the peace of mind that comes from knowing that your data is on your transporter and that your transporter is safe on your desk or in your server room, not sitting in some server farm in who knows where, just waiting for who knows who to take a run at it. With a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no reason not to try Transporter. But there's an even better reason. Right now, you can get 10% off any transporter up to $35 by using the code MV10. Or get $20 off the Transporter Sync with the code MV20, both at FileTransporterStore.com. That's even more savings over the money you're shelling out now. Might even buy you a little extra legroom on that flight to Macworld. FileTransporter.com and the codes MV10 and MV20 to save you money, improve your privacy and security, and expand your personal cloud. Win, win, win. Transporter and Transporter Sync. Your data in your own private cloud, safe, secure, and cost-effective. Thanks to Connected Data for their ongoing support of MacVoices.
I think it's a very admirable task that you've undertaken, Joe. Because I think, by doing these shows too, we try to do some of that. We try to make some of the more powerful things more approachable to people, make sure that they aren't intimidated, let them see you. Hopefully you're not intimidating, and, they can start to learn from you. So I can think of another category of automation projects, but I want to hear, what your main categories are in the book.
Because
I did a little.
we talked about text expansion and what was the other one? Good
Launch.
Launching, yes. So
right.
what
Okay.
else?
So I mean, it's a long book, and I talk about dozens of different things you can do. But I did a little thought experiment, and I tried to think, okay, if I could only have one automation tool, just one, like the whole stranded on a desert island thing, and I could choose just one, what would that one be? For me, that one utility would be Keyboard Maestro. And the reason I choose Keyboard Maestro is it's a macro utility, which means it automates sequences of events, and you can assign menu commands or keyboard shortcuts or timers or whatever to them. But Keyboard Maestro also includes a text expansion capability. It also includes a launcher capability. It also includes tons of other stuff, clipboard history, and so forth. Now, it may not be the best in those various categories, but it's the most versatile. So I could accomplish just about anything I needed to do in Keyboard Maestro, even if it wouldn't always be the most perfect way. So I talk quite a bit about Keyboard Maestro, and just to run down a partial list of some of the other things I talk about keyboard shortcuts, including when they really aren't a good idea, and when they might be a good idea, and how you assign them within OS X, how you assign them with another utility. I talk about things like, using rule-based searches. So if you're making a smart folder in the Finder, a smart playlist in iTunes, a smart mailbox in Mail, smart album in iPhoto, and so forth. They all use the same sort of interface where you're saying, well, if this matches, if this condition is true, then do this. So I talk about those sorts of things. I talk about automating input devices like mice and trackballs and other more exotic things, and getting the various controls on them to do interesting things. I talk about the clipboard. So there are lots of utilities that will let you do cool things with the clipboard, such as remembering all the things that you copied to it. So, I copy, I paste. I copy, I paste. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I need that thing that I copied 2 copies ago. I got to go back to the place and copy it again. But no, you don't have to. You can copy, 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 and then paste, 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 and go back in time. So there are lots of utilities that maintain a clipboard history, which saves you a lot of effort of going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And they can even do things like, I've copied something, but I want to paste it in a different format. I want to do a find and replace on the thing that's on the clipboard, and then paste the new version of it. All kinds of cool tricks. So I talk about clipboard utilities. I talk about things like Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel and Nicest Writer Pro and apps that have built-in scripting capabilities. And again, these are huge, complicated. I don't want to say complicated, but they're very deep capabilities. And I tell you enough to get started, get your feet wet. But I tell you how to automate things within apps like those. Talk about automating email. I talk about automating the web. Things like services like IFTTT, if then that, which can say, well, if a new file appears in my Dropbox and it's a photo, then upload it to Facebook. Or if this happens in this cloud service, do something in that cloud service. I talk about, of course, needless to say, I talk about automating backups and syncing. And we're on page, 148 now, and we haven't even gotten to the good stuff. So I have a chapter about what a lot of people, I wait until this point in the book. I go through kind of all the easy stuff before I even get to what a lot of people think of as automation, which is things like Automator and AppleScript and services and shell scripts. These are all things that are built into OS X, and they're really, really powerful. They're also kind of geekier. As I explain in the book, here, just follow these steps, and look, you have an AppleScript. It's so simple. It's not as bad as you might think. But at the same time, there's a lot there if you want to get really serious in AppleScript or even in Automator. There is quite a lot to learn, but you're rewarded with a great deal of power. And the very last chapter in the book is sort of my save the best till last approach, which is about macro utilities like Keyboard Maestro, because they are so incredibly powerful and they don't require any programming. It's drag and drop like Automator. You just say, well, I'd like to do this, and then I'd like to do that, and I'd like to do that, and let's see, what would I like to trigger this? Well, I think I'd like to press Command Option Control L or whatever. It doesn't matter. And when I press that, I want these 3 things to happen, or these 100 things. And the range of things you can automate is just spectacular. So that's really my favorite thing. And so I try to help you get hooked on Keyboard Maestro.
One of the things we talked about before we started the interview is that this is not for geeks. This is for the common man, the common user, the person who, frankly, who doesn't want to know or care or spend the time on shell scripts and learning AppleScript and learning Automator and learning all these things. But this is a book that will help people do some of the little things. Now, you just ran through quite an intimidating list, and it's stuff that go in and pick out what works for you. You don't have to do them all.
Right. So the way I describe the book when you're first starting in the book, it's like, okay, read the first couple of chapters because they're sort of introduction-y. But then imagine you're walking into a zoo, and it's sort of maybe it's arranged in a circle with spokes, and you can say, well, I want to go see the pandas here, and I want to go see the giraffes over there. It doesn't matter. You can go in any order. It's not like you have to follow some specific path, and I can't see the giraffes until I've learned about the pandas. Well, no, you can just go see the giraffes. It doesn't matter. So I very much encourage people picking out the particular things that are interesting or important to them when it comes to finding shortcuts, and just go and read about that one thing. And if they later realize, oh, I'd like to learn about this other thing too, then by all means go and do that. Where I thought you were going with that comment, though, because this is another thing we talked about before the show, was if you're interested in something like AppleScript or Automator or Keyboard Maestro, there's this factor of, well, but there's so many things there. I mean, it's AppleScript is a programming language, and Keyboard Maestro isn't a programming language, but has a lot of things and buttons and doohickeys in it, and it just feels like it's like stepping into the cockpit of a 747. It's like so. The approach that I try to encourage in the book is, don't feel like you have to learn some big huge new thing all at once. The first thing to do is just figure out how the tool basically works to do things. I'll just give you explicit steps. You do this, you do this, you do this, you click run, done. So no thought or creativity or programming skill or anything else is involved. Just follow these exact steps. Now do the same things with other example scripts or macros that I've given you. Just plug in these different words or these different things. Now try running that. See what happens. Oh, that's a useful thing. So do some more of that. Doesn't have to be just the things that I have written. Use exactly the same steps. Go do a web search for some other activity that you want to automate. Grab somebody else's script or somebody else's macro, plug it in, run it, see how it works. And once you've gotten the hang of just running things that other people like me have written, then you can move on to, well, this is great, except, this window is a little too narrow for me. Could I modify one number in there to make the window wider? Sure you can, and you try that, and oh, look, I changed it. Now it's better for me. And so you just go in and tweak tiny little things, and now you've achieved the next level of power. And then you think, well, okay, this is good, but there's a whole new thing that I want this macro or this script to do that isn't mentioned anywhere. So I'm going to go, do some web searches or read a book, and I'm going to try to add a line, just one thing I'm going to add that is a new thing. But when I add it, my macro or my script will do a completely new thing. And so I'm just recommending that by stages like this, you work up to the point where you eventually say, I think I'm ready to write something completely from scratch with no training wheels. And you know what? if you never get there, if you never want to get there, that's totally fine. Even just using prepackaged things that other people have written can save you tons and tons of effort, and it just might inspire you to take that next step. And in fact, maybe Chuck, you have an example of something like this that you'd like to share with the audience.
Well, my example kind of, and I want to go back, remind me to go back to the beginning, because I want to go back to the beginning. But I've got for this show a fairly involved production process, and I have tried for a while to automate various parts of it. I've had luck with some, and there's some that just escape me. And frankly, it's a major project, but I also don't have the time or the inclination to learn AppleScript to do it. So there's another level you can take it to. If it's big enough, if it's frequent enough, if it's important enough, hire somebody. Hire an AppleScript or automator programmer or someone that has some familiarity with this. There are a lot of people. Joe and I specifically said we weren't going to name any names because we don't want to leave anybody out. We also don't want to inundate anybody with some crazy requests that are kind of beneath them. But if you need that, that's what I'm in the process of doing now. Right. Is I'm examining what can be done.
For example, with a web search. Here's a script that somebody else has written that does, 70% of what I need. And so that's cool, but maybe I could contact the author of that thing and see if I could get some help or advice, maybe for a fee, on doing that last 30%. So this is the type of thing that both of us have done. And it's all about making our lives easier. So if you can borrow someone else's work or pay them to do work for you so that you don't have to do the work yourself, there can be a lot to that.
I wanted to go back to the beginning, Joe, and point out to the fact that a lot of people are already using automation on their Mac. They just don't think of it that way, and I think this is a key point. When you open up your mail program, your mail program checks for mail and then sits there and waits for a little while, then checks again. That's automation. It's that simple.
That's right. Even things, automation can be as simple as just using a feature that is right there. So a particular loved one, not mentioning any names, when faced with the need to quit an application, invariably goes to the file menu, the application menu, then drags down to the quit command, and then clicks the mouse button. And that's okay, that works, but if you look at that menu, you'll notice that right next to the quit command is the command symbol and the letter Q. So if you practice enough, if you memorize that command, that keyboard shortcut, Command Q, you will eventually get to the point where you can press those keys a lot faster and more accurately, by the way, than if you have to, okay, where's that menu? Okay, click. Okay, where's that command? Click. Oh, I missed it. I have to go again. Not every keyboard shortcut universally is faster than using a mouse or anything like that, but there are certain features like that are just there. You don't have to set anything up. You don't have to program anything. You don't have to download any software. You just use what's there. And if you learn those really big important keyboard shortcuts like Command C for copy and Command X for cut and Command V for paste and a bunch of others in that category, you can save yourself tons and tons of effort.
It sounds so simple, and it really is. It can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. And if you want to get started in this world, Joe's book is where you need to start, because he's going to take you through in a non-intimidating fashion.
That's right. Because you know me. This is what I do. I take complicated subjects and I try to distill them and present them in a way that ordinary people who don't have computer science degrees and aren't highly technically proficient can understand and make use of. I hope I succeed more often than I fail, but anyway, that's what I always try to do. So this is not a book for heavy-duty geeks. This is for people who just want to save time and who love the idea of doing less and letting their computer that they've paid a lot of money for do more of the work for them.
Well, never mind. There are things I'd love to automate, but it's just not going to happen until we get artificial intelligence.
Yeah, well, like you can automate expanding text. You can't really automate writing a book because there are tasks that just require human intelligence. They require creativity. They require subjectivity. They require you to make decisions that a computer would be unable to make. So we're not aiming for artificial intelligence. We're just aiming for less annoyance.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So this Take Control book is just a little different because this is a rather long Take Control book because you couldn't be held back. Is that about right?
There's so much to say. I mean, I could have made this book 2,000 pages long. Instead, it's 200-ish.
Ish?
Yeah, well, here's the interesting thing. It was, I forget, it's like 196 or 197 pages. But then we added some stuff to the end. We talked to the developers of a bunch of the products that I mentioned in the book. So, Launch Bar, Text Expander, Typeinator, Type It For Me, Hazel, which we didn't even mention in the show, but Hazel is a great automation utility for the Finder, Text Soap, Nicest Writer, Keyboard Maestro, and all of these developers have given us coupons. So you can save anywhere between 20 and 30% on these various products. If you used all of the coupons, you'd save something like $66. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you to get started with these different kinds of automation. And so the combined value of these discounts is about 4 times the cost of the book. So we have this sort of metric in the Take Control world that usually, a book that's around 100 pages would cost about $10, and a book that's around 150 pages would cost around $150, and a 200-page book would cost around $20. But this one isn't $20. This is only $15, even though it's over 200 pages long, and even though you're getting over $60 worth of discounts for free. So I just really love this book. This book was so much fun to write. And it's a topic that I feel really passionate about, and that I find so much fun and so useful. So I want to do anything I can to encourage people to start on the path to automation. So we're making the book inexpensive. We're adding all the discounts, and I really hope that the combination of those two things will encourage lots of people to buy the book. And I would go so far as to say that if you buy only one of my books this year, well, that would be a terrible decision because, I have a family to feed. So you really shouldn't buy only one of my books this year, but certainly if you're buying only 3 or 4 of my books, this one should be at the top of your list.
And, I think people, if they can get over their fear, and it's pretty easy to get over if you just let Joe be your guide, but you become addicted to this because you start to see opportunities for places where you can make your life simpler, where you can save, okay, it's a few seconds, or I may not misspell that word constantly that I just cannot seem to learn no matter how hard I try. There's so many little things that can make your life easier. And so don't feel like you have to go in and go to the back of the book and start learning programming. Play with some of the stuff up front, and you're going to find that you get suckered into it. And just like Joe, with all his enthusiasm, it's fun. It really is.
Right. Well, as I was writing the book, I kept noticing things where, why haven't I ever automated that? I can totally automate that. And so I'd stop writing and spend a half hour, doing whatever I had to do to automate that thing, and then I'd use that in the course of writing the rest of the book. I'm like, why didn't I do this a year ago? This is so much easier. This is so cool. And so if my book can encourage me to do more of this stuff myself, then hopefully I'm on the right track for everyone else too.
So it's Take Control of Automating Your Mac. This is the first edition of this book, so it's brand new.
Yes.
Not updated or anything. This is just right off the cuff.
Brand new.
TakeControlBooks.com, of course.
That's right.
$15.
$15, but you get discounts on a lot of stuff, so we're basically paying you to buy this book if you think of it. So
that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Folks, let Joe pay you to buy the book.
That's right.
Okay. Joe, it's great to see you. Thanks so much. We'll do it again.
You.
It's always a blast. I always learn something.
Looking forward to the next time.
Definitely. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. We will be back with more soon from Joe and from a whole lot of other folks, and we hope you'll join us. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the Mac Voices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest Mac Voices news from our front page or at MacVoices.com/newsletter. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at BackbeatMedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at CashFly.com.